Let's get to our first topic. Now, as preparations for the 2023 elections continue to gather momentum, Nigerians are desirous to have a government and a leader that will address the multitude of problems in the country, as there is a sense of hopelessness, of course, exacerbated by current macroeconomic challenges ranging from rising inflation rates, which is eroding the purchasing power of the poor masses. Insecurity, which is fueled partly by deepening poverty, has taken a turn for the worse and has upended livelihoods and businesses, as well as deterred foreign investment into the country. As expected, the 2023 elections is likely going to be a bit different from the past elections, as the electorates who have so far, according to them, several disappointments, are really head-bent on going head-on to pick their leader this time around. We are waiting to also hear the manifestos of these parties, but we'll be following all of that moving on. Joining me live from our Abuja studios to set an economic agenda for the various presidential candidates ahead of the 2023 elections is a senior economist and a partner at SPM Professionals, Mr. Paul Alaje. Mr. Alaje, thank you so much for your time. It's good to see you.
Yeah, thank you so very much for having me.
Okay, now we've seen other parties, but of course the main political parties, the PDP and the APC, finally they have their candidates for the coming elections. There are a lot of issues to talk about. I must say a lot is in the plate for us to address today. But let's start with, what do you think should be the economic focus? What should be the blueprint? Where should we start from before we start to go into some specifics? Of course, we know what we face, the macroeconomic challenges, insecurity and all of that. But let's start with an overview of what is expected of the coming government.
Thank you once again. The challenge ahead of any leader of Nigeria after President Muhammadu Buhari is enormous. From economy to rule of law to insecurity and so on and so forth. If I would narrow down on economics, but it's not limited to that anyways, that leader must understand that we have a lot of macro challenges. The GDP we have, even though it's the largest in Africa, but it is small compared to the number of our population. The GDP growth rate, that is the rate at which the GDP is growing, it's also small, but because it's almost our population growth rate. And when you look at what the result we have in recent time, where we can say, oh, GDP number is growing, but we can also say that because we have had very weak base here. Again, inflation. Inflation came to Nigeria with its boxing glove. It's giving Nigeria several combinations in terms of blow. Urban poor continue to suffer from uppercuts from inflation in Nigeria, while rural deprived is suffering from hunger and deprivation. So it is important for anyone that wants to lead Nigeria to understand that economics is a serious task, and we are not going to wish it away by saying we have made the best of appointment or we have had individuals. The question and the issues are very clear. How do we attract enough investment, both local and foreign? How do we improve the soul of Naira? And by this I mean, how do we improve what we are getting in terms of our foreign direct investment in real sector, not just portfolio investment into our country? How do we expand several other frontiers beyond Lagos, Port Harcourt, and Abuja? How do we pick political development and create development hub outside of these three major, say, states, and if I can call FCT state for the sake of this conversation? How do we pick another or two more states within the southwest region, within the south-south region, within the southeast region, within the north-central region, within the northeast and northwest? How do we reduce unemployment? The last figure remains 33.1%. That means 1 out of 3 member of labor force, and that number is only 70 million Nigerians. How do we save the soul of Naira from depreciation from time to time? And how do we become a resourceful, a productive, and exporting nation? In economics, how do we improve our ports? We have one major functional port, even we have other ones that are trying to come up. But they've refused to perform up to expectation. How do we improve the performance of our ports, from Lagos to Port Harcourt to Calabar? How do we make them more functional? How do we also improve quality of life? How do we say that labor, the most important, perhaps one of the most important factors of production, will sleep and believe that it will wake up? Not because he wants to die natural death, but he may go to church on Sunday and he would have been killed by bandits, the so-called bandits or terrorists. How do we protect life and property? The task ahead of anyone that emerges as the President of Federal Republic of Nigeria is hugely enormous. Will he remove subsidy? Will he keep subsidy? We are projecting about 4 trillion naira. This is June already. And how much have we spent from beginning of the year till now? If naira loses value further, government will have to pay more in subsidy because Nigerians have not been provided alternative. If you remove subsidy, the truth is that many have said we are subsidizing the rich. But what happens to the poor whose income is not able to take him to the bus stop, let alone his work or office, or let alone to buy food? How do we then cushion the effect of the impact of subsidy must remove it? Will it come by providing more buses to people in themselves that needs to be maintained? Will it come by sporadically increasing the gain we have had in rail in recent time? Will it come by, in fact, providing alternative to energy? What do we do to those who are finding it challenging? We bought diesel 300 naira in December, January. Today is between 760, I beg your pardon, to about 800 naira. How do we improve things around energy? Without energy, I cannot speak. The same with industry. Cost of power have increased significantly. Cost of diesel, among others, is also increasing. Our domestic gas increased. What exactly, how will people live quality life with high cost of living and very poor or little living standards?
Mr. Paul, it's a good way to start. Meanwhile, some of these issues, we must agree, have a global touch because it's a global issue now when you talk about energy costs and all of that. But that's not where I'm really going to. We've had issues around policy in this country, and many people will tell you that Nigeria does not lack policy. As far as when I was very young, I heard of the structural adjustment program then. It was called SAP. We've moved on, and at least I'm so enlightened now to understand the economic recovery and growth plan, which we drawn out at the time to use to try to reactivate and re-energize our economy, and to the economic sustainability plan, which was also drawn out. And I think there's also another plan that is on ground. But many have talked about implementation. What do you think is the problem here?
Well, recovery and growth plan had major challenge because government did not even put a price to it. That is why that plan failed woefully. It achieved less than 30% of set target. Sustainability plan, it's another one that the government is working on, and I hope that we'll see significant report. Now we have national development plan in which we expect trillions of naira to be spent, out of which private sector will carve out 85%. What is our progress? And among those that want to run either from the ruling or progressive Congress, that we now have Mr. Tinubu as the candidate. And for the People's Democratic Party, we have Alhaji Atiku Abubakar. Labour Party, we have Mr. Peter Obi. We have NNPP, where we have Mr. Kwankwaso. These four runners, even though we have many more other persons running, but if I can limit my conversation to this one, it doesn't mean I don't recognize the rest. Which of them is talking to economic national development plan and saying that there are strategies to make this plan work? Again, this might be that we are already seeing that there will be no continuity. Recall that in 2014, we have national convert, and we hope that new government will implement such convert. As I speak to you, that government have done over 7 years. There is no mention of that conversation that was done in 2014 where national resources was spent. Now we have another one which looks good, which we hope that the private sector can cover 85%. We might see continuity in programs of government and correction in areas that might not be good enough. But all the aspirants, as those that became candidates, no single mention in all their conversation at their manifesto, even on their different websites and materials they are talking and they are using to campaign. None of them is discussing continuity. Does it mean Nigeria will start from ground zero? Remember, when President Buhari came to office, he said he wants to start with zero budgeting and that he will perhaps start on a clean slate and on a fresh plate. Until now, I ask, if we use 20 years to rehearse madness, when exactly are we going to practice it? When will it become something that we all can embrace and practice? I don't think it will be fair on Nigerians if we want to start again and again and again. It's that time, with the many one-year President Buhari has, call different stakeholders, call different policy makers, check the document that has been presented, there is an adjustment, and hand it over to the next person that will take the baton of leadership of our country so that we can reduce unemployment and, more importantly, we can reduce those that are poor, both in urban center and large number of them in the rural areas.
Now, the escalating population growth, which is worrisome because when compared to GDP growth, you know what that means. Clearly shows that every now and then someone is flipping into the poverty line because when that figures don't match, then there is a problem. Do you think that any of these aspirants should be candidates, I beg your pardon, should be thinking about population control one way or the other to address this?
Well, it's that time we mentioned the truth to ourselves. Nigeria and Saudi Arabia are the countries with largest population growth rate in the entire universe. We have countries that are so religious, even far more religious than Nigeria, that now understood that there is no point giving birth to or bringing people you cannot take care of to this earth. Governments of those countries have made population control mandatory. And that is why you see, even though their growth might not be as sporadic as they expect, they are seeing significant improvement in the quality of life of their citizens. Nigeria, there are things that we are shy away, we don't want to talk about. We shy away from them because they don't sound politically correct. But what is politically correct is that when you ask those that are poor, if they have eaten since morning till the time we're having this show, the chances are that they have not eaten. Ask them if they can send their children to school, even when government says you don't need to pay school fees. But how will they get material for those children to go to school? The truth is, among aspirants, we must hear conversation. And the conversation must be how policies will be implemented. And what is this policy in this regard? How do we control our population? Now, each population shouldn't be a challenge, provided that you can drive the population to optimum level. But when you ask, your available resources is decreasing, but population is increasing. And that's even talking about birth control. But look at people that are flowing to Nigeria from different borders, especially from the northern region, where people recognize people in other countries as their family members, and they can be brought into the country at will. We are not saying family ties should be disconnected. But when it comes to countries, separation or distance or difference between country A and B, there should be proper monitoring system, either through technology or through proper immigration policy, so that we know how many number of people are we really planning for, and what will our population be by 2025, what will that population be by 2035. Do we have significant policies, resources to take care of these people? I am afraid if we don't, we need to remember what President Buhari said in 2018, November or December, when he was presenting his budget, 2019 budget to National Assembly. And he said, and I recollect very well, that his greatest challenge and challenge of any president that will lead Nigeria, who will be in shoes right now, is not whether we win 2019 election or not. That his biggest challenge is resources. How do you continue to say your house is burning rather than looking for water? You are looking for petrol, PMS, and say that someday, if you keep pouring PMS on the fire on your house, the fire will quench. I think that's a major sign of foolishness. And if you ask me, are we doing the same in Nigeria? Do we stylishly encourage population growth? While we hope that someday we are going to borrow money, someday we are going to figure it out, someday we are going to be fine. The truth is that everyone that goes to boxing contests without preparing how we take down the opponent, they always come out, but not on their legs, but in stretchers.
Conversation, Mr. Paul. Let's shift focus to our oil and gas sector. You know, that's very strategic for us. That's Nigeria's cash cow. Even as much as we try to diversify our economy, money still comes well from that sector. We've seen the PIA, finally, this administration was able to pass that into law, though we still have some issues talking about subsidy removal and all of that. But my focus will be on the amount we spend on imports of petroleum products. If our refineries, hopefully NNPC says before the end of this year, the Port Harcourt refinery will be functional. If that happens and the Dangote refinery also comes on board, do you think we'll start to address this ugly trend gradually, one way or the other?
Well, I strongly believe we'll start to address, but one, refinery is too few. Two, one is a monopoly. Two, remains duopoly. And few is oligopoly. It's good to start with oligopoly. And if we say that refinery will work, I see no reason why government should manage it. Give it to private sector to manage. Private sector will manage. They will look at globally competitive price. We have crude oil in our country to refine and sell. It will make it more competitive, and it will improve performance and expectation for availability of product, welfare of our people, and more importantly, for those that are in business, profit for their pocket, and to take care of the employment and improve employment rate, reduce unemployment rate significantly. But one hand, we want to provide welfare. The other hand, we also want to protect our national assets, which is very important. But what seems to be the gap is corruption along the line that brings confusion to the minds of several policymakers. I strongly believe that Dangote refinery come mainstream, even though it's not charity organization. Dangote is going to sell refinery, it's PMS and other products at the rate that it feels is competitive. If nobody is challenging Dangote with supply, I tell you, you might even buy higher than what you are buying an international market today. So as we are building that refinery, and all of us are talking about it, giving us hope, building up in ourselves, which is very important anyways, we must also be ready to give out the 4 refineries. And I wish that we had not reversed the policy, the sales that was made by one of the former presidents. By now, we would have significant amount, even though it might not be enough. But this one that the whole nation is on our knees because of war between 2 other nations that has no business with our territory. Talking about Russia and Ukraine. The war continues to go on in that Eastern European countries. Today, Nigeria suffer for PMS at 760 to 800 for no war that concerns us. Meanwhile, we have what do we call it now? Crude oil beneath our feet. Our ability to convert it to what we can put in a generator for industrial use, what we can put in our gas as PMS, it means we don't have sufficient knowledge or resources to put all of this together. The ones we have in the past, it is okay. We should reduce the pride by calling those that can help us to make them work. And I hope that those that will be leaders of our country in less than a year from now will do the needful, and they will start work from day one, so that Nigeria can gain the benefit of whether they will vote for them or not, but whatsoever emerge, Nigeria can gain the benefit of democracy by voting that man or that woman, even though I'm yet to see one candidate that is a lady, except when we see the announcement in the near future.
Okay, let's wrap up on this too, because this conversation is so getting interesting. Inflation remains on the high side. That's of course thanks to global issues contributing to these figures. The GDP figures, also the growth we had, is actually is dwindling one way or the other. It's a low grade. It's not what we expect moving on. And the global crisis, which you alluded to, wrapping up your contribution. And our debt stock, debt servicing remains a threat. What's your projection ahead of 2023 elections for economic growth in the country?
Well, beyond 2023, for the next leader to avoid major protests across the country, because if the IMF report is anything to go by 2025 and beyond, between 2025 and 2026, Nigeria may use 100% of revenue to service debts. When you look at federal government spending pattern, according to IMF, not my figures, according to IMF report, it revealed that over 80% of government revenue was used to service debt alone, not to pay salary, not to even be stolen by politicians, not to build roads, not to buy cars, but was used to service debt. Imagine if it's 100%. That means we are going to borrow to pay salaries. That means we are going to borrow to build infrastructure, and to pay the man in Aso Rock, we will also borrow. Is this what we want for ourselves? That is why government should now become more innovative, to look for more ideas at federal, state, and local government levels on how we can boost revenue. And all of us that are Nigerians, we must work with our government, whether we like the person in office or not. Starting with President Buhari, how do we provide advice so that we can have an improved nation in terms of revenue? And the president, like I said, had mentioned it earlier, that the biggest challenge that confronts our nation is revenue, revenue, revenue. And next to that is poor management of resources. So for me, I strongly believe that if you don't generate more revenue, our debt profile will continue to increase. And when you go to the Debt Management Office website and you check between 2014 or 2013 till date, there has been that consistent increase in our debt profile. To shock you, or maybe to surprise you, and I don't know if I've mentioned it on your show before, that last year, February, for borrowing no money, January or February, for borrowing no money, Nigeria added 1 trillion naira to our debt profile. If you ask me how did that happen, because we devalued. All the monies we borrow in US dollars, because we have devalued naira, they all sum up to approximately 1 trillion naira. So this is it. Beyond what is happening in Ukraine and Russia, we could also have to load, or we could have to the load of our national debt if we don't manage our currency properly. A lot to talk about, a lot to worry about, a lot to be solved, but we hope that Nigerians will make the right choices, not just in our churches or mosques. We should go and pray in both our religious houses, but more importantly, we should go with our brain and our mind when it comes to time to vote. We should get our PVCs and go and vote and say this is the way we want God to answer our prayer, and we're going to see light at the end of the tunnel for our nation.
Hopefully, I must thank you so much for your time. Interesting conversation there with Mr. Paul Alaje, who is a senior economist and partner at SPM Professionals. He joined from our Abuja studios. Do enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you so much.